Slow it down just a hair and just turn it into a little bit of a,
Sure.
I'm going to get, give it a little look and then go with it, okay?
Hey everyone, I'm the Canadian Lad, and I'm gonna ask you 3 questions now. Why did you enjoy Deadpool and Wolverine way more than Captain America Brave New World? Forget about the cameos Deadpool and Wolverine had, but you still enjoyed it way more than Captain America 4, right? Why is that? Okay, question 2. Why do most fans still rank Infinity War above Endgame, even though Endgame nails the finale perfectly? And my third question to you is, out of every director out there, why did Marvel hand over Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars to the Russo brothers? Movies that might become the biggest in Hollywood history, not just comic book history. Okay, so now that you know the questions, and you probably have an answer in mind already, but let me tell you my answer, because it's the same answer for all 3 questions. Elevation. Let me explain what I mean by that. If I ask you to think of a moment from Deadpool and Wolverine without the cameos, you will probably land on Wolverine grabbing Deadpool's forearm and completing the circuit. His suit tears apart, revealing Hugh Jackman's shredded physique, with the choir singing Madonna's Like a Prayer in the background. Or you might think of the intro where Deadpool dances to Bye Bye Bye. Or the first time Wolverine puts on the comic-accurate mask in live action. Or that slick, slow-mo Mac reload from Deadpool. The point is, there are multiple scenes that made you go back to the theater just to feel those moments again. Now try to find that kind of a moment in Captain America 4. There wasn't one. And the few things that could have worked, they were already shown in the trailers. Imagine if Marvel had spoiled Wolverine's shirtless physique in the trailer. Then the theater payoff wouldn't work at all. That'd be the opposite of elevation. But the Russos understand elevation better than anyone at Marvel. The same thing happened in Infinity War. I still get goosebumps thinking about Thor's arrival in Wakanda. This moment works because it's built like a symphony. Here's what the Russo brothers did that cemented this scene in comic book history forever. They spent about 14 minutes setting the stage for Stonebreaker, explaining what Nidavellir is, how Thanos forged his gauntlet there, and Thor literally holding open a dying star. Then Groot sacrifices a piece of himself to bind the molten metal, forming a handle. Thor then awakens, and the axe responds to him. Now watch how the entry is staged. The Avengers and the Wakandans are losing ground. They're practically overwhelmed by the army of Thanos. But then the Bifrost opens up, blasting through the battlefield. And from inside of the Bifrost comes Stonebreaker, taking out the enemy one by one. We still don't know who's stepping out until we see Thor's silhouette inside the Bifrost, confirming it is indeed Thor with Rocket on the shoulder and Groot at his side. And as it happens, the Avengers theme slowly starts playing in the background, indicating that the Avengers are about to go into overdrive. But the Russos don't stop there. They underline that feeling. Bruce Banner says it out loud. This is verbal elevation to match the visual. And then Thor charges, lightning surges, and the sky darkens. This is pure theatrical electricity. And that's what I mean by elevation. And that's exactly why Marvel went back to the Russos for Doomsday and Secret Wars. Chris Hemsworth had 3 solo films before Infinity War, but the Russos delivered his best version of Thor. And it's not an accident, it's intentional. Remember this scene from Captain America Civil War where Steve Rogers stops a chopper with his bare hands? Well, on the day of filming this scene, Chris Evans arrived on set in a jacket because of a costume department miscommunication. But the Russo brothers knew exactly what scene they're gonna film and how they wanted to depict Steve Rogers here. They wanted to show Steve's raw superhuman power. So the Russos sent Chris Evans to go change into a half-sleeve tee so every muscle reads on camera.
You really were holding back a helicopter too.
It was on a rig, clearly, but the first take we did, the rig, it didn't go far enough, and so you're kind of just, you look silly almost, and you say, guys, can we get it so it actually extends to the point where you really are trying to hold something? And they did, and you really do, all of a sudden you are trying to hold something. It may not be a helicopter, but regardless, it did something, and that's true. There were many days that I would come into Downey's trailer, and he has all these amazing contraptions. He's like, well, I was going to say another comic book character. We don't want to bring DC into this stuff. But he has all these amazing toys, and he really had all these little, stickers and weird things and like
electromedicine,
whatever it is. And it actually was great. It's a mess again, though, I will say.
I'll mention this. I remember the day we shot that scene. There was a miscommunication with the costume department, and Chris came to set to start the scene in a jacket. And Joe and I were like, no.
Everyone was like, no.
It would have been a different scene.
Yeah.
In the jacket.
That's not just directing, that's predicting where an audience will explode. Superhero films live or die on these stand-up and cheer moments, and yes, craft matters. But when a director can feel the crowd's pulse while they're still in the writing process, that's where the real magic happens. Tarantino does this all the time. Fan first, filmmaker second. He imagines the movie he'd want to watch, then makes that movie. And in the comic book arena, the Russos operate the same way. A good story isn't just enough. You need altitude. You need scenes that punch past reality and etch themselves into memory. Scenes that make you return to the theater to relive. In other words, the Russos think like the audience, but then film like architects.
This is going to be a great shot.
The way they elevated the whole Stonebreaker scene, they did it again with Mjolnir in Endgame. Only this time, they weaponized our expectations. When Mjolnir rises into the air, we're naturally assuming Thor is summoning it, but it goes to Captain America. That split-second misdirection is engineered for a theater-wide eruption. It's not just Cap is worthy, it's the payoff to a decade of hidden details and character choices, delivered with timing, framing, and the perfect silence before chaos, so the audience's cheer becomes part of the scene. And you see the same playbook in Spider-Man No Way Home by John Watts. That movie didn't almost hit $2 billion by accident. In fact, with the China release, No Way Home would have beaten Infinity War's record. Yes, Tobey and Andrew do bring nostalgia, but the reason people kept going back wasn't only the portal scenes. It was the elevated choreography like the three Spider-Mans swinging together, where Tom webs off Tobey and Andrew and launch as one. This scene alone turns nostalgia into a physics-backed team maneuver. That's by design. That's filmmakers anticipating exactly where your pulse spikes and crafting the shot in a way so your brain remembers it. And there's science behind this too. When a movie twist goes against your prediction or an action beat that lands bigger than reality, you get a dopamine hit. Your memory flags that moment as replay-worthy, which is why you buy another ticket for this same movie. Right now, no one at Marvel tunes those dopamine peaks better than Joe and Anthony Russo, which is why a movie like Fantastic Four First Steps felt good to watch, but not worth remembering. This is the same reason most people won't be able to remember the plot of Iron Man 3, but they do remember how Tony saved Pepper by getting his Iron Man suit onto her. And this is where Robert Downey Jr.'s Dr. Doom comes in. Kevin Feige has always wanted RDJ to play Dr. Doom even before he started working on Iron Man.
Robert had come in for a general on it. And I remember you had all met with him already for like Dr. Doom or something on another project. I think I think he had come through on a maybe
Right.
Fantastic Four.
Right.
So everybody sort of knew who he was. And I remember sitting down with the guy and I was like, geez, he just got it in it. He's got that spark in him and his eye and he's ready.
And the Russos have long said if they return post-Endgame, it will only be for Secret Wars. And to adapt Secret Wars properly, you need Victor Von Doom. So when Marvel pivoted from the Kang storyline, everything fell into its place automatically. The Russos now get to make Secret Wars, and Feige's finally able to pair RDJ with Dr. Doom. It all fits. Also, the Russos know how to frame RDJ. Think of that nanotech suit up in Infinity War or Endgame, or Thanos throwing a moon at him and giving Tony the most human arc in Civil War.
Who's going to avenge my son, Stark? He's dead.
They've always presented Downey in ways that feel mythic and personal at the same time, and Doom needs exactly that, grandeur with an edge. So if you're nervous about Avengers Doomsday or unsure about RDJ stepping into Doom's mask, breathe. The Russos are steering this ship. And they're not alone. Stephen McFeely, the writer behind Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame, is writing Doomsday and Secret Wars. That's the team you call when you need the elevation baked into every action scene. I genuinely believe Doomsday is the movie that puts Marvel back on the throne. And when it does, it'll be because the right filmmakers knew how to turn precise little moments into cultural whiplash. See you lads in the next one.